What's up, y'all? Hope you're doing great, and we're back for, you know what it is, Dark Souls 2, 5 bosses per video, although we're just doing 4 because we have reached the end of the game, and today's video is just the remaining bosses for Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, which has been an absolute blast, but we'll save that for later because we're going to hop into the first boss of the video, boss number 36 on the list, the Ivory King, who concludes all the DLC and, of course, his own DLC, the Ivory Crown. And woo, what a way to end the DLC itself, because this is done in glorious fashion all throughout. Maybe the gameplay is somewhat lacking, you know, it doesn't really hit as hard as Sur Alone, Fume Knight, the Dragon's Sin, and all that kind of stuff, but the atmosphere, the aesthetic, you know, dropping down at the beginning with your boy Knights, who you recruited throughout the world into the old chaos, is just all adds to it, and then finally battling it out with his minions, his other knights that he's corrupted to evil or chaos, I guess. And then when you're beating them and you've locked up their portals, he comes out of the flames, comes out of the old chaos from a portal burning in fire, and it is just an amazing entrance. I love it so much. It took me one attempt because, like I said, the gameplay really isn't there where it's not hard, but I think that's good because if I had to experience this again, it really wouldn't hit as hard and it would just be more annoying because it's kind of time consuming with like how you have to fight the knights and slowly freeze their portals for the Burnt Ivory King to come later. And the presentation just wouldn't be as unique because I've already seen it. So it being a lengthy but satisfying battle, I really do enjoy. Not every battle needs to be one that you fight 10 times over. There's already so many in this DLC and really just game that I don't really mind. It's truly a great battle that's pretty unique. I think I still prefer like the Executioner's Chariot uniqueness because this is still just kind of an ordinary boss fight with some extra steps in it. You know, he has the minions and shit, but it is done very well and I think it's just perfect to cap off the DLC, and I guess it's the game originally because you would have already played the DLC and then done the game. But since how I'm playing it, we still have more game left, thankfully. And moving on down the list, we start at the very end of the game with the Throne Watcher and Defender. And let's be real, this is a poor man's Ornstein and Smough. It is not that hype of a fight in comparison to that kind of dual boss fight, even though it is sort of the same premise. You have the Throne Watcher, who is the fast chick with the, you know, sword that kind of rushes you. And then you have the Defender, who's the big man in the armor with the giant shield and sword. And kind of the reason it's not as great is the aesthetic and also just the gameplay itself. The aesthetic just doesn't really hit. They don't really look to be too unique. They're just kind of dressed up as knights, you know, and she's dressed more up in kind of lighter armor with just some kind of cloth garments around it. It's just not very cool. And the Defender isn't much better. He's just a knight. He's wearing armor, and while he does have a giant shield and he's a giant of a man, it's still just not as impressive or unique as some of these bosses can be. For Ornstein, for instance, Ornstein is incredibly cool. He has a unique armor that shows up in this game and is liked because of this. Old Dragon Slayer would be nothing without Ornstein from Dark Souls 1. And then you look at Smough, and Smough is even crazier. Armor of gold, giant armor. You know, he has like 3 different eye slits, with one of them being the actual one you wouldn't even expect. It's a really crazy, weird design. And he has this comically large hammer as the Executioner. Like that's cool, unique design that these kind of lack, and so they're just not that cool. Gameplay, yeah, they're fast and slow people, but they're really weak in comparison. I think in DS1, that fight will give you trouble, but this one really shouldn't. It took me the one attempt, although, because I have trouble coming up, you'll see, I did have to fight them in New Game Plus, and because I'm not in New Game Plus, I was basically a new game build, they were a lot harder because of the revive mechanic. It probably took me 10 or so attempts because you'd have to get them both to like a quarter of their health, kill one, and then kill the other. So that revive mechanic does make them harder late game, but when it only takes me like 10 or so hits to kill them, it's not a problem in New Game. It's also funny to me that like Vendrick had the fucking Fume Knight and Velstadt as his like 2 main guards, his right and left hand man. And then when Nassandra takes over after she takes the entire marriage, throws it in the drain, takes the kids and the castle, she gets the Throne Watcher and Defender. Like, come on, dog. These are absolutely terrible compared to those big boys. They would tear these bitches a piece. Fucking Fume Knight could probably take both of them at once because of how big his sword is and how much damage he does from a single punch. Shout out to Cash Cheat for letting me know that that was not a hitbox, but actually just the Fume Knight's massive muscles that apparently are invisible or something. And so this takes us to the next boss of the video, Nassandra. Cassandra, who, let me just say, for all of us out there, what happened, alright? Cassandra wasn't exactly the Desert Sorcerer or the Emerald Herald, but like, you know, I could see what Vindrick was going after if, you know, I'd hit. I don't think she edges out, you know, Quelaag, but she definitely beats Nazca, so she's pretty up there in Dark Souls wham and tier list. But whatever the fuck is in this boss fight felled off. All right, shame on Cassandra for not taking care of her skin. She should have been on any skin products, anything to keep her fucking self together. All right, she's perfect for Vindrick now. They're both old and ruined and expired. It seems that both of them suffer the consequences of divorce. It makes sense now why she ruined his life, because she knew that she was going to turn into the ugliest motherfucking hag I have ever seen. The homeless people that I walk by when I go to work look better than this motherfucker. They don't even have teeth. They fucking have like crack bumps on their face. They're fucked up. She was the goddamn queen. How does she end up like this? I don't know, but it is wretched. All right, apparently the Throne Watcher and Defender didn't do their jobs because they let the most grotesque creature sneak in and take the place of Cassandra, because I just do not believe it. Besides that though, the fight isn't even very good. She has like the lamest attacks. She put these curse things around. You just have to break one for them not to bother you. She shoots like a fucking Iron Man hand laser blast or like a Palpatine lightning shot. Just roll and then hit her like 3 times. Not very hard. She is pretty tanky, so it does take a little bit of time, but she's pretty dog shit. And also, I thought this was the end of the game. I beat her and the game ended. And I was like, huh, that's weird. What about that scary guy that I talked to earlier? I thought he would show up again. Oh, he did. I just never talked to him. I've missed that guy on like the second thing. After you talk to him, after you beat the 4 like main bosses, he shows up again in like the catacombs, and I just never knew he was there. So I had to go talk to him where he is with the dragon in the ancient dragon area. And then he's supposed to show up. But since I beat the game, now I couldn't fight him. So I had to turn the game to New Game Plus in that area using the bonfire aesthetics, which is a super cool mechanic because it did save me from losing my footage for the other ones because I could refight them in New Game Plus, but also made me understand real pain because, as I said earlier, Throne Watcher and Defender, way harder in New Game Plus. And Cassandra, also way harder because that motherfucker's laser blast kills. All right, it does so much damage. And since we're done talking about that stupid ass ugly hag, we can move on to the final boss, Alita, Scholar of the First Sin, who is like a bad guy, but not really a bad guy. I don't know. I don't really understand that lore because he's kind of chill. I don't really understand why we fight him. But his fight is also really hard because it's New Game Plus. That motherfucking fireball does probably like 80% to 90% of my health. Insane. Not fun. It took me 5 attempts. I literally like switched around some armor to get better fire resistance because I was struggling. But I think he's cool. I don't think it's as cool as Gwyn as a final boss. It's better than Cassandra as a final boss because that was just lame. But it doesn't really hit as hard, and that's overall how I feel about this game. Is I think Dark Souls 2 is a really cool game. I think it really expanded and just made a bunch of shit and just threw shit out, right? Like, yeah, some bosses don't hit. Skeleton Lord's dog shit. Covetous Demon dog shit. But you give me like the Executioner's Chariot? Okay. Duke Dear Freya? Alright. Those are bosses that I will remember. DLC, you give me Sin? Yup. Fume Knight? Yup. Blue Smelter? Yup. Sir Alone? Yup. You know, you can cook in this game, but there is a lot to slog through, especially some of the areas just not great, like Winter Outskirt, Sir Alone's Walk Up. The Iron Keep itself is pretty rough to go through, especially if you go through it before some of the others that lead to the 4 bosses. But yeah, I can see where people have an issue, but I think if you play Dark Souls, you kind of have to put up with it because there's bullshit in all the games. Think of like Blight Town in DS1. That was bad. The Catacombs is kind of annoying. The Giant Tomb, kind of annoying. Like, there is things that aren't great in both games. I think Dark Souls 2 is just a bigger game, so it was more amplified because there was more bad stuff, but I think there's also more good stuff. And of course, another reason why I prefer Dark Souls 1 over Dark Souls 2 is kind of the lore. I kind of make fun of it a lot, but the lore that I do understand is that Dark Souls 1 was a grander narrative than Dark Souls 2. It was about saving the world and learning about the creation of it with the fallen gods and dragons. I mean, you see that in the opening cutscene. There's a battle where they kill every dragon, supposedly. I still don't quite understand that since there's other dragons in the games, but it's a big narrative where you actually, you know, decide the fate of the world. You either plunge it into darkness or you reignite the flame to keep going. In Dark Souls 2, though, you can't save the world. It is an unsavable world that has collapsed. But what you can do is you can save yourself. You can break yourself from the cycle, and it still makes you a hero of your own world. You're not exactly selfish, but there's nothing really to that. It just feels like a lesser story, and even though you learn about the world itself, it doesn't feel like a continuation of saving the world. It just feels like you just grow to be strong enough so that you can take care of things yourself and not have to rely on anyone else saving you, but you can't save others. And it's even seen in the endings where you fight Gwyn, the strongest of the gods who took down every dragon with the help of some others, but still, he is a powerful fellow. And at the end, he's nothing. The flame had whittled him away, and he's just the Lord of Cinder. He's no longer the Lord of Sunlight. He's become nothing. The world has finally taken his power away. But in Dark Souls 2, you fight Nasandra, who has more or less just become corrupt and was married to Vendrick, who are both, I don't know, they're kind of more mortal than, Gwyn. And even Alita, he's just the brother of Vendrick. He's not really anything massive. They did a lot of things to try to save the world, but they failed. They didn't actually do anything to change anything, unlike Gwyn, who defeated all the dragons and lived his life saving the world by keeping the fire ignited. I wish the endings also were a little different, but it is just ignite the flame or leave it. And once again, I'm going to leave it because I don't think, especially in this game, that there is a point to ignite the flame. The world is already lost. I already didn't want to ignite the flame just because it already wasn't doing anything. Rekindling it doesn't help because the world in Dark Souls 1 was already so broken. And even though Gwyn held on for so long, nothing really changed. So I left that one, and I'm gonna leave this one too. The world of Dark Souls 2 doesn't just need a savior, it needs a complete reformation. Everything needs to reform anew because what the very foundation of it is corrupt. It's like wet wood. If you have a foundation of wood and it's wet, soaked, whatever, you can't build on that. And so I wouldn't want to keep going in Dark Souls 2's world so that it could keep trying to get built upon. It just needs to collapse. And I think by letting the flame die, not rekindling it, that will happen, and hopefully either I or something else can reignite it when the world can be better. And that will do it. I appreciate you all for watching this video and all the other Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 1 videos, because I mean that's what makes this so rewarding to do. I don't get paid or I don't really get anything from it besides the satisfaction of seeing people enjoy it and just kind of being able to conversate from that. It's dope, and I thank you all so much, and I will see you in the next video, which is going to be a surprise because it's not Dark Souls 3. We're going to take a little break. See you then.